My name is Mike Collins. I'm 36 years old, and for the past 10 years, I've been married to the woman I thought was the love of my life. Jennifer, smart, beautiful, charming. We met at a party hosted by mutual friends in New York, and from that moment, I knew, this was fate. Our marriage seemed perfect. We bought a cozy house in the suburbs of Chicago, got a dog, and built the life we had always dreamed of. I worked as a financial analyst, and Jennifer was an interior designer. We had enough money to live comfortably, travel, have fun, and make plans for the future. But as they say, the devil is in the details. The first warning sign came quietly. Jennifer started staying late at work, saying she had a lot of clients. She took her phone with her into the bathroom more often, and when someone called, she would leave the room to answer. It felt strange that the person who used to share everything with me suddenly started shutting me out. Is everything okay? I asked one evening when she came home past midnight again. Yeah, of course, she kissed me on the cheek and quickly went to the bedroom. I tried to convince myself that everything was fine. Maybe it was just exhaustion, stress, a new project. But something inside me told me that these were just excuses. And then, there was Tom. His name started coming up too often. Tom from the studio suggested a great idea for a project, she said over dinner. Today, Tom and I went to pick out fabrics for a client. Tom said I should try this restaurant. Tom. I tried not to be jealous. Of course, she could have friends and colleagues. But the feeling of unease never left me. And then, I saw it. One night, when Jennifer was already asleep, I went into the bathroom and accidentally knocked her phone off the shelf. It lit up from the touch, and a message appeared on the screen. I can't stop thinking about you. Today was incredible. Good night, darling. From Tom. A wave of icy dread washed over me. I looked at my sleeping wife. Her face was so innocent, so peaceful. And inside me, everything was boiling. I stood in the dim light of the bathroom, staring at the screen. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. My hands clenched into fists before I forced myself to loosen them. This couldn't be real. I glanced at Jennifer, still asleep in our bed, her breathing slow and steady. I could almost convince myself I had imagined the message. Almost. I knew I had two choices: wake her up right now and demand an explanation, or wait, gather more information, and make sure I wasn't jumping to conclusions. I chose the latter. The next day, I pretended everything was normal. Over breakfast, Jennifer scrolled through her phone, smiling to herself. Something funny? I asked casually. She quickly locked her screen and gave me a sheepish grin. Just a silly meme from Sarah. Sarah? Right. I had to play this carefully. If she was lying, she was already good at it. That evening, I stayed late at work. At least, that's what Jennifer thought. Instead, I parked a few streets away from our house and waited. At 8:37 p.m., I saw her leave. She was dressed nicer than usual. A tight black dress. Heels. Not exactly a girls' night out look. I followed her. She drove downtown, weaving through traffic with practiced ease, until she pulled into the parking lot of an upscale restaurant. I parked a block away and walked to a spot where I had a clear view of the entrance. And then I saw him. Tom. Tall. Athletic. Confident. The kind of guy women noticed. Jennifer stepped out of the car, and he greeted her with a kiss. Not on the cheek. Not the way colleagues or friends greet each other. A real kiss. My stomach twisted. I should have stormed in right then. Made a scene. Let them both know I knew. But instead, I stood there, frozen, watching the woman I had given 10 years of my life to, laughing, holding hands with another man. And in that moment, something inside me broke. I don't remember how long I stood there. A few minutes? An hour? Time blurred as I watched them, laughing, touching, lost in their own world. Jennifer looked happy. That was the part that cut the deepest. She looked freer, lighter, like a woman who wasn't sneaking around, but simply enjoying the company of a man she wanted to be with. A man who wasn't me. A waiter led them to a table near the window, and I forced myself to move. Standing there like a statue wouldn't get me anywhere. I needed more. I walked into the restaurant. Keeping my head low, I took a seat at the bar, far enough away that they wouldn't notice me but close enough to observe. My fingers gripped the edge of my glass as I watched Jennifer lean in, whisper something to Tom, her fingers brushing against his arm. He smirked. Said something that made her giggle. When was the last time she laughed like that with me? I clenched my jaw. This wasn't some harmless flirtation. This was real. Intimate. The bartender placed my drink in front of me, and I barely heard him. My mind raced. What was I supposed to do? Walk over and expose her? Wait until she got home and confront her? Pretend I never saw this? I wasn't sure. But then, something happened that erased any last shred of doubt. Jennifer's hand slid across the table, fingers interlocking with Tom's. She wasn't hesitating. She wasn't nervous. She was choosing him. I exhaled slowly, my vision narrowing, the sounds of the restaurant fading into the background. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. My wife was having an affair. And now, I had to decide what to do about it. I left the restaurant before my emotions got the best of me. Storming over there, flipping the table, demanding answers, it would have been satisfying, but it wouldn't have changed what I saw. I needed a plan. By the time Jennifer got home that night, I was sitting in the living room, pretending to watch TV. The moment she walked in, I caught the faint scent of cologne, one that wasn't mine. "Hey, babe," she said, slipping off her heels. "Long day?" I forced a smile. "Yeah. You?" She stretched, letting out a fake yawn. "Exhausting. I had dinner with Sarah after work, and we lost track of time. Sorry for getting home late." "Sarah." Again. I swallowed back the bitterness rising in my throat. "That's okay. You should have called." She hesitated, just for a second. "I figured you were busy." "Liar." I nodded, pretending to believe her, and let it go. "Not yet. Not now." Over the next few days, I played the part of the trusting husband. I kissed her in the mornings, texted her at work, asked about her day. She acted normal, better than normal. Maybe because she thought she was getting away with it. But I wasn't sitting idle. I started tracking her movements. Checked her phone when she was in the shower. Went through her emails. I found enough to confirm what I already knew. Late-night messages. Hidden photos. Plans for a weekend business trip that I now knew was a lie. The evidence piled up. And then, I set the trap. That Friday, I told Jennifer I had a last-minute work trip and would be gone for the weekend. She pretended to be disappointed, but I could see the flicker of excitement in her eyes. She thought she was free. I packed a bag, kissed her goodbye, and left the house. But I didn't go far. I parked down the street and waited. 2 hours later, Tom's car pulled into my driveway. Jennifer didn't even hesitate. She opened the door, let him in, and just like that, they were inside my house, our house. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I could go in right now. End this. But no. Not yet. I needed her to know exactly what she had done. And I needed her to feel what I was feeling. I sat in my car, staring at the house I had built with Jennifer, the place where we had spent countless nights together, laughing, dreaming, planning a future. And now, she was inside with him. I could see faint shadows moving through the curtains. My blood boiled, my fists clenched. Every instinct screamed at me to storm in and tear everything apart. But I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. No. This needed to be colder. Sharper. I pulled out my phone and opened the security app linked to the house cameras. Jennifer never cared much about the system, and she had no idea that I had added extra cameras over the years. One in the hallway. One in the living room. One covering the front door. I tapped into the live feed. And there they were. Jennifer and Tom stood in the living room, laughing, drinking. She looked so comfortable. Too comfortable. I hit record. Every word. Every touch. Every stolen glance, I captured it all. I didn't need to see more. I had enough. I took a deep breath, steadied my hands, and typed out a message. Envelope with arrow to Jennifer subject, I know. I hope you're having a great time with Tom. You didn't even wait an hour after I left to invite him in. You could have at least pretended to miss me. But I suppose you stopped pretending a long time ago. By the way, you're on camera. Smile for me. I hit send. Inside the house, Jennifer's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She picked it up, read the message, and froze. I watched on the security feed as she turned pale. Her hands started to shake. Then Tom looked at the screen over her shoulder. His face twisted into something between panic and rage. Jennifer sprang to her feet and ran to the window, peering out into the darkness. She knew I was close. I smiled to myself as I watched her unravel. Then, for the first time since this nightmare began, I put my car into drive and pulled away. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. She didn't deserve that. As I drove away from the house that no longer felt like home, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Jennifer, 5 missed calls. Jennifer, Mike, please. Let me explain. Jennifer, where are you? Jennifer, it's not what you think. Please come back. I didn't reply. Let her sit in her panic. Let her wonder what I was going to do next. I pulled into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The neon sign flickered as I checked in, paying in cash. I didn't want her to know where I was, not yet. Inside the room, I sat on the bed, staring at the phone. The messages kept coming. And then, one caught my eye. Tom, we need to talk. I let out a bitter laugh. The nerve of this guy. For a moment, I considered responding. Meeting up with him. Seeing what lies he'd try to spin. But what was the point? I had all the proof I needed. Instead, I opened my laptop. The evidence. The footage from my security cameras was all there, every touch, every look, every moment they thought they were safe. I saved the clips to a secure drive, then backed them up in 3 different places. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them yet. Send them to her family? Her friends? Post them online? No. That wasn't my style. But divorce? Oh, that was inevitable. The next morning, after getting a few restless hours of sleep, I finally decided to respond. Meet me at the house. Alone. She replied within seconds. Jennifer, thank you, Mike. I swear, I can explain everything. Lies. But I needed to hear them anyway. I pulled into the driveway just as Jennifer opened the door. Her eyes were red, her face pale. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. Mike, she whispered, stepping toward me. Please, just let me. I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. Don't. Just tell me the truth. She hesitated. A flicker of guilt crossed her face. Then, she did what I expected. She lied. It was a mistake, she started. I got caught up in the moment. It didn't mean anything. I scoffed. Didn't mean anything. So, the late nights, the secret messages, the weekend trip you were planning, none of that meant anything? Her face crumbled. She knew she was trapped. I pulled out my phone and played the video. The moment she saw herself in the footage, laughing with Tom, holding his hand, she covered her mouth, eyes filling with tears. "You recorded me," she gasped. "You recorded yourself," I said coldly. "You just didn't know it." Tears started streaming down her face. "Mike, I shook my head. "Save it. I just needed to hear you say it. Now, I can move on." Her face twisted in panic. "Wait. What do you mean?" I pulled a manila envelope from my jacket and tossed it onto the table. "Divorce papers." Her hands trembled as she picked them up. "Mike, please. We can fix this." I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, I felt nothing. "No, Jennifer. You broke this. And I'm done." Jennifer stood there, clutching the divorce papers like they were a death sentence. Her lips trembled, her eyes darting back and forth as if searching for a way out. "Mike, please," she whispered, stepping closer. "I know I messed up. I'll do anything to fix this." I didn't move. I didn't flinch. "You don't get to fix this," I said, my voice colder than I expected. "You made your choice. Now live with it." Tears welled in her eyes. For a moment, I almost believed they were real. Almost. Then she tried to shift the blame. "It wasn't like I planned this," she pleaded. "I was lonely, Mike. You were always working, always distracted. I needed someone to be there for me." I let out a bitter laugh. "And Tom just happened to be that someone?" She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "It just happened, okay? I didn't mean to fall for him." There it was. The truth. I felt a sharp sting in my chest, but I refused to let her see it. I stepped forward, lowering my voice. "Do you love him?" Jennifer froze. Her breath hitched. And that hesitation. That was my answer. I nodded, stepping back. "That's all I needed to know." She reached for my hand. "Mike, please don't do this." I pulled away. I already did. I had planned ahead. The bank accounts were already separated. The house? It was mine before we got married, and my lawyer assured me she wouldn't get it. All that was left was for her to sign the papers and leave. But she wasn't going down without a fight. "I don't want a divorce," she said, her voice shaking. "Can't we just?" "No," I cut her off. "There's no we anymore." Her face twisted in anger. "So that's it? 10 years together, and you're just throwing it all away?" I clenched my jaw. "You threw it away the second you let him into our house." That shut her up. She looked down, fingers gripping the papers so tightly they crumpled. But I didn't care. I was done. I turned to leave, but before I stepped out the door, I said the last thing I'd ever say to her. "Sign them. And don't ever contact me again." Then I walked away. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. I stepped out of the house without looking back. The cold night air hit my face, but it felt different, crisper, cleaner. Like I had been suffocating for months and was finally able to breathe again. Jennifer didn't chase after me. She knew there was nothing left to say. I got into my car, gripping the steering wheel, waiting for the anger, the grief, the regret to crash over me. But they didn't come. Instead, there was only silence. A quiet, steady kind of peace. The divorce process moved quickly. She fought at first, begged, cried, even tried to manipulate me into believing we could fix things. But the evidence was too strong, and the moment she realized I wasn't going to cave, she finally signed the papers. Tom. He disappeared the second things got serious. Classic. I never spoke to him, never confronted him. He wasn't worth it. Neither was she. A few weeks later, Jennifer moved out. I didn't watch. I didn't need to. She sent one last message the night she left. Jennifer, I'm sorry, Mike. For everything. I stared at the words for a long time before deleting them. Some things don't deserve a response. The house was too big, too full of memories, so I sold it. Packed up and left Chicago. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere was better than the place where my world had fallen apart. For the first time in 10 years, I was free to live for myself. It was terrifying. And exhilarating. One night, months later, I was sitting in a quiet bar in Seattle, a whiskey in front of me, when my phone buzzed. A friend from back home had sent me a picture. Jennifer and Tom. It was a screenshot from social media, Jennifer alone at a table, an empty chair beside her. The caption? Guess true love doesn't last after all. I smirked and took a sip of my drink. She had destroyed our marriage for a man who never intended to stay. Poetic justice. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done looking back. The future was waiting. And this time, it was mine.